Save money, save the world is a pun, a very dramatic expression. But we believe there is a business logic behind it. First of all, the price is attractive. The products are also attractive and beautiful. Both men and women feel passionate and excited about it. They feel that this is a dignified way of living. For most people, the first impression of second-hand goods is definitely that they're dirty, messy, and of poor quality. People are always worried about being scammed, right? So we address this issue.
It's not time yet, just keep watching for now.
Many people might say, how could second-hand possibly change the world? When we listen to rock music, we think, wow, that's awesome. I was once endlessly warned. An animated character saving the world, don't let me see it. So I asked, why can't second-hand do the same? Isn't making the most of things and not wasting them a good thing? That's actually a way of exploring possibilities. So I think it solves a real problem, which is turning the virtual into the real. These are things that were used in the past. These pipes were all used during the renovation process. Then we turned them into a painting. It feels a lot like Van Gogh's Starry Night mixed with sunflowers. However, for a very long time in the distant past, we have unfortunately not been able to successfully find the right and proper position for these second-hand products within the global market. Because we'll find that we're not among the internet companies or the e-commerce companies. Then we started thinking about what ranking we should belong to or what kind of positioning we should pursue.
So how did you eventually find this direction?
Because good start.
I can see that you're always full of energy. What makes you so energetic?
Hypertension. All right.
You had meetings all morning.
I thought it would end at 1:30.
It was supposed to finish at 1:30.
Right, after finishing in the afternoon, there's still stuff in the evening.
Will it go until midnight?
I don't know.
Do you feel okay about it?
Go ahead and ask.
When you founded Zhuanzhuan in 2015, the market was actually pretty tough. There was a competitor, Xianyu, backed by Alibaba.
I think if I say this today, a lot of people probably won't believe it. I think at that time there wasn't really any judgment, not much consideration. The whole thing with Xianyu was just an impulse. We just charged in with passion, right to the front lines of entrepreneurship. To this.
Why is the mascot of Xianyu a bear?
A very simple reason is that our competitor's name is Fish. I'm not sure if I can say this, but we just thought, let's pick a cute animal. The first version of the logo was a bear poking its head out at an angle. It looked like it was full of curiosity about a new world.
Finally, we picked that for its honest, simple look.
It has many different expressions.
You left 58.com to start your own business in 2015. Actually, in 2015, I think 58. Tongcheng was the dominant force in the classified information sector, especially after merging with Ganji. After the merger, you had already become a senior vice president. At that time, you gave up your shares in 58 to come out and start this second-hand platform. Did you have some kind of judgment about the second-hand market? Did you feel there was still a lot of potential?
In 2015, we really didn't have any commercial considerations. At that time, we just rushed in with pure passion. Then all our friends would come and ask why we chose this, saying that we definitely wouldn't succeed. They said Alibaba was already ahead over there. I think we were in a state of being so fired up that we were fearless out of ignorance. We really didn't think that much about it.
We just chose secondhand.
The main reason we chose to do secondhand at the time was because we thought not every Chinese person needs or can afford to buy a house, and not everyone can afford a car either. But secondhand might be something that can reach a much larger user base. A bit of this career. For me, for example, actually 58 also had a secondhand section in its early days, and I was also in charge of 58's secondhand business. It seemed the information-based model had unsolvable issues, so we eventually needed to shift to a transaction-based model.
Think of it this way. A transaction platform prevents scams more effectively than a simple information platform.
Information platforms aren't replaced. Users get info, then go offline to deal, often just seeing the phone number. They deal at Beijing's Zhongguangchun or Shenzhen's Huaqiangbei. At that time, if someone got scammed, the platform wouldn't know because you weren't there at the scene. But the advantage of a transaction platform is that the payment for goods is held in an intermediary account on the platform. Not only is the money held here, but even the goods pass through us for quality inspection. At this point, in fact, you can have a closed loop of information for the entire transaction. If there is a problem, you can use the closed loop of the transaction to provide feedback to the front end. If you don't have this closed loop, you have no idea what's going on. Everyone just argues their own case, and you can't really know the situation.
When you have meetings, do you, for example, benchmark DIU or other metrics against Xianyu?
Once you enter this track, Xianyu will naturally become your benchmark. But honestly, we've never thought that just because Xianyu is there, we wouldn't dare to do it.
Imitate and you die, innovate and you live. You must find your own way.
In the early days, we thought that there wasn't much fundamental difference between us and Xianyu. We were both doing C2C transactions because from day one, Zhuanzhuan was actually a multi-category platform. The only thing we did a bit more than them was that we would inspect certain items. Basically, it was like this from 2015 to 2019. But starting from 2020, we came to deeply realize that in the second-hand category, because it involves transactions of used goods, so if you want to do well in any category, you probably need to invest very deeply. So over those years, we forced ourselves to shut down other businesses and other categories to focus. We put all our energy, or at least 90% of it, into second-hand mobile phones. Within this category, we believe we are providing a different kind of value. The value we offer to users may be very rich, and you can find almost anything, but you might need to put in some effort to carefully distinguish between them. The information about quality may not necessarily provide you with any real guarantee, especially for ordinary users who aren't very good at discerning information. The core value that Zhuanzhuan provides is this. We believe that we want to enable those who are hesitant to trade to feel confident enough to do so. That's why we provide intermediary services for these non-standardized second-hand transactions. These services include things like quality inspection of second-hand goods. I think our fundamental philosophy has changed. Looking back now, I feel that was a very correct decision. To borrow a phrase from Chairman Mao back in the day, how should we view our retreat? In fact, we were retreating from other categories, battlefields. If you retreat and save the people but lose the land, both the people and the land can be preserved. But if you save the land and lose the people, you lose both the people and the land. If at that time we still refused to truly differentiate ourselves from Xianyu, or if we were unwilling to really cut a lot of categories, even though on the surface it looked like we occupied those areas, in reality, whether it was our economic model or our talent, we ultimately would not have been able to survive. So we would end up in a situation where everything is barren, so on the surface it looks like a retreat. But I think for the sake of future victory, it is a strategic retreat.
So in other words, a phased retreat is to help us focus. And then after we do a good job with second-hand phones, we can expand into other categories again.
That's right, because we never once thought that we would only do one category. Most importantly, we have never told consumers that we are just a second-hand phone platform. Or rather, what's even more important is that we want to tell you we are an officially certified platform. The emphasis is still on official certification because behind us we have intelligent inspection, reliability, and rigorous physical testing.
When do you think we'll have meetings where we don't mention Xianyu anymore?
I think the reason we're still talking about Xianyu today is probably because Xianyu is still a very strong C2C player. What we're proposing is called the C2B2C model, and ultimately the competition is really about which model can evolve faster, each representing its own approach. A little bit. I'd say I consider myself a bit of a literary youth. I definitely have the ability to be rational, but at my core, I just love listening to rock music. I still feel like, wow, getting fired up, doing something, just going for it, charging ahead, that's what excites me. For me, if I have to calculate too much in my daily work, I find it really annoying, and I'd rather just let it go. If I feel like 3 aspects are pretty much covered, I just go for it.
That way, a lot of complicated things get simplified.
Exactly.
Tell me, is this little bird here every single day? Also, how exactly do you personally understand the details of Zhuanzhuan's specific C2B2C business model?
C2B2C refers to us and some of our ecosystem partners. Between the two ends, the buyers and sellers, we essentially provide a service. Actually, it's about the segmentation of consumer needs, every consumer, really. In any given field, there are actually different levels of demand. In the second-hand market, the way we segment users is by user type. On consumer-to-consumer websites, users are looking for more variety. But on our platform, we hope users can feel more at ease when searching for the products they want, especially when they're buying valuable items. When selling valuable items, they will choose platforms that offer better service and more security.
This value is actually trust.
We believe that trust is the most important thing in the second-hand market. Because unlike new products that all come straight from the factory, second-hand items are different. It comes from one individual, then is sold to another individual. So there are just the seller and the buyer, and their understanding of the item can be very inconsistent. So what we are essentially doing is trying to standardize a non-standard product as much as possible. We provide a trustworthy service for it. A lot of people really need this kind of trust as a guarantee.
I see Zhuanzhuan is getting more involved. For instance, they have a large inspection team where I do quality checks. And in Wangfujing, I saw they opened a very large flagship store.
This wasn't the result of strategic planning. I think what we first determined was that we wanted to provide services. We started thinking about what services are important to users. And the first thing we launched was quality inspection. Then, as we kept going, we realized almost without noticing that we already had it. 2,600 engineers, and engineers covering all kinds of categories. Then, when we were providing seller services, when we were recycling their items, at first it was done through express delivery, including mailing items to us. But later we realized it was hard to clarify things because when you mail something, it's impossible to explain everything clearly over the phone. So we said, why not just talk face-to-face? That would be easier, right? And if we both agree during a face-to-face meeting, I can transfer the money to you on the spot. This is the fastest way, so we started to build a team for door-to-door recycling. At the same time, we also discovered, besides door-to-door recycling, there is actually a store inside the shopping mall. We think it might be the best second-hand experience people can imagine. Why do we say that? Because for most people, the first impression of second-hand is probably that it's dirty, messy, and poor quality. What you imagine is maybe an old bookstore from your school days, or perhaps a street stall in some neighborhood. It has its own charm, but you might end up with an unpredictable result. But when we open a store inside a shopping mall, it's really to show ordinary consumers that, look, even second-hand goods can have a store in a mall, and
Upscale.
think about the second-hand items you imagine. When we display them, they actually don't look that bad. If you're still not reassured by the pictures you see online, then just come and see for yourself. First of all, the prices are attractive, and the products themselves are also very appealing. So I think up to today, maybe we can look back and summarize a lot of things. But at that time, we were really just starting from the needs of the users. We wanted to build trust.
So conceptually, we helped everyone change their mindset.
When it comes to second-hand goods, the first thing people worry about is being scammed, so we set out to solve that problem. All the furniture in our entire environment here was bought second-hand.
Is this tree of recycled items?
Originally, there was a fire protection pipe inside this tree, so as you can see, we wrapped it with a tree exterior, which makes it feel quite
Interesting. The company developed until 2020. Actually, something quite significant happened, which was the merger with Zhaoliangji. Actually, I think there are big differences between your two teams. For example, you guys came from big companies, professional managers, but in fact, the Zhaoliangji team really fought their way up from the lower tier markets. I don't know, when you merged, did it have the effect of 1 + 1 being greater than 2?
I think it might even be 1 + 1 = 5. It was a huge transformation. But this process was full of crises. The people from the old Zhuanzhuan team were more internet-oriented. They focused on user profiles, product profiles, and R&D profiles. They had all kinds of lofty ideas, thinking on a very high level, but in many aspects they lacked that kind of sharpness. However, their industrial and technical capabilities were relatively stronger. Then as for the Shenzhen team, we used to say they were like bandits, bold and direct. They were business people who came out of a stall in Huaqiang Bay, but they were also principled business people. The common ground was that they didn't deceive users, but their styles were very different. We were the ones doing the integration, and it took a year and a half. During the process of working together, there was a lot of tension and mutual pain, like two stones rubbing against each other or being in the same bag. They eventually wear each other down and adapt. So for a period of time, everyone's communication styles. People would think, oh, why are you like this? Why aren't you more like me?
Can you describe the most intense clash you had, like a collision between Mars and Earth?
We had a meeting at Yangtze Lake in Beijing on September 30th, 2020. We set up a session where everyone could drink and vent their frustrations. Sometimes saying something, anything at all, is better than keeping it to yourself. That way, instead of talking in small circles, we could speak openly in a larger group, so everyone started venting like crazy. After everyone finished venting, it felt like we were on the verge of a divorce. That was the feeling.
What did they say?
When I say criticize, I don't mean personal attacks. It's more about not understanding each other. How could you be like this?
What was the most intense point, the sharpest complaint?
Some people even said, if we had known it would be like this, we wouldn't have merged. But I was thinking to myself, did our conversation really get to that point?
Did you feel hopeless at that time?
No.
Wait a second, are there no results to be found here?
No, at that moment, I just felt like I was number one. At that time, what kept me tense was that I didn't have any personal thoughts involved. In that situation, I was just thinking. I was considering the organization as a whole, how it had become like this, looking at it from a global perspective. So actually, there was no room for personal emotions.
Your intentions were still pretty modest.
My intentions were very small. Even the intentions in the T-Name Sutra weren't big.
How did you train yourself to have such modest intentions?
I think I've had a bit of a people-pleasing personality since I was young. Secondly, after I started my career, I actually became a product manager. What I'm good at is thinking from other people's perspectives. So I'm not good at influencing emotions, but I can pick up on emotions and also identify needs and then try to understand them, the things behind them, right?
So how do you cooperate with yourself?
As you grow, you slowly realize that this kind of wishful thinking is impossible to achieve.
So this comes with a lot of self-awareness.
Yes, some people feel like, that's it, tonight I can't hold it in, but in the end they still can't hold it in. I remember at the time, I said two things that left a deep impression on me. I said, each of you, even in your original state, you also need to update yourselves. Now you keep defending your past self. Was your old self really that great? And another thing, we set a principle. I said, now that we're together, we're not here to become the old Zhuanzhuan. And we're definitely not here to become the old Zhaoliangji either. We're here to establish a new Zhuanzhuan group. We're together because we genuinely want to accomplish something bigger. But it seems like we're all just defending our past selves. So how are we supposed to move toward the future? Since we're together for the sake of the future, why can't we let go of our past selves for the future? So we should have a formula. This formula. It's called A plus B equals C. A is the old Zhuanzhuan, B is the old Zhaoliangji, and C is our new Zhuanzhuan group. No one should go looking for traces of A with me. No one should think about whether I can continue to be B. It's impossible. Today, we must become that C. Can you turn yourself into a member of C, or can you change yourself for C? Actually, once you realize this, it's really about returning to the basics. And it happens quickly because everyone is on the same boat. In the end, you have to solve this problem, or you get off the boat.
So after that meeting, both teams had a clear goal and direction.
Don't keep defending that.
Past version of yourself.
Don't be stuck in the old ways anymore. Whether I defend A or defend B, neither will get us to the other shore, so it had to be that day. It was already 1:30 in the morning when we finished, so it ended very late. What I did well was that I really made sure everyone didn't let the conflict drag on overnight that evening. It's like taking all the different schools of thought that erupted and simplifying them into a formula that's as simple as possible. And it's a formula that's not only simple, but also very easy to understand, so everyone knows this is how it has to be.
That's pretty good. But later on, Zhuanzhuan Hai actually merged with the Hongbulin Ershi brand. And in fact, this kind of outside culture kept coming in. So actually, you'll be thinking about how to keep this team continuously cohesive and united.
Every time we go through integration and mergers, the situations we encounter are always different. I think as the number one and the top leader, one of the most important things is to look toward the future. The second point, I think, is to have enough respect, to recognize that different teams and different businesses require different capabilities behind them, and to see that different people possess different abilities. For example, during the integration process with Hongbulin, there was a particularly interesting workshop we held. At Zhuanzhuan, we had never talked about aesthetics before. At that time, we said, if we want to do a good job in secondhand fashion, what capabilities do we need? One day, during the discussion, someone put up aesthetic ability as a required skill. I said, now we know this ability might be very important in this field, but in the past, our team probably wouldn't have ranked it in the top 5 or top 10 abilities.
Because merging with Zhaoliangji actually meant transitioning from an all-category platform to a more specialized mobile phone category. But Hongbulin, on the other hand, deals in second-hand luxury goods. Many mobile phone users are male, while many luxury goods users are female. So that's why Hongbulin would bring up the issue of aesthetics.
I think so. And in that field, many luxury and fashion brands actually have histories spanning 100 years, far exceeding the lifespan of an internet or tech company. Yet they are still able to endure for so long. There must be something behind that. So, as people who understand this industry, people within this industry, including many of us who are probably mostly men, we really do look at the consumer demand for this category. What is it like? I think we need to maintain enough respect for these things. Respect for the matter itself, respect for professionalism, and respect for the different profiles of people.
You've gone through 2 mergers. Why were you able to make them succeed? Because most mergers are likely to fail.
I suppose it's because I'm a sincere person.
What has that brought you?
People know you don't have a lot of hidden agendas. Maybe you don't say everything, but what you do say is basically what you truly believe. And when you say you want to accept the other party, you genuinely mean it. It's not that you don't want to accept them, but pretend otherwise.
Consistent.
Yes.
When did you feel that you truly became an entrepreneur?
I think it's when you're facing death. First, reality is very harsh. Second, there's really no one to catch you if you fall.
Actually, there's a characteristic of the second-hand platform industry. When a few companies emerge, each of them is backed by a big parent company. For example, Xianyu is backed by Alibaba, Zhuanzhuan is backed by 58.com, and iHuishu is backed by JD.com. But when it comes to the actual market, for instance, if you want to outperform iHuishu in competition, what do you rely on? Right now, it's still at the stage of street fighting.
Indeed, because iHuishu has strong backing from JD.com, they're particularly good at getting a lot of volume through JD's channels. So when it comes to this competition, I think we really have to rely on ourselves. We can't become someone else. Even though we have 58.com, Tencent, Xiaomi, and many other very supportive shareholders behind us, from day one, Zhuanzhuan has been an independent company. In 2019, Zhuanzhuan was on the verge of death, on the brink of bankruptcy, barely able to keep going.
What kind of situation was that?
It was that there was barely enough money in the account to last a few months, maybe just enough to pay 6 months of salaries. It really was a situation where things could fall apart and the company might not be able to go on. Looking back, I think the biggest mistake was actually a strategic and operational one.
What was that mistake?
From 2015 to 2019, I was a new entrepreneur myself. At that time, I thought as long as you satisfied your users, that was enough. Things like business models and such could be figured out later. So in the beginning, we didn't make a single cent in revenue. And this situation lasted for many years. When we first helped others with device inspections and quality checks, we only charged 1 yuan. We thought, at least we should charge something, but we never actually calculated how much we needed to charge just to break even. We never even considered this issue. Maybe for me, I was a bit too idealistic, and coming from a product manager background, there was actually a second mistake under this. At the time, I read a lot of entrepreneurial biographies and military stories from history, and I really wanted to try surprise attacks. For example, in 2018, we invested in World Cup advertising for massive exposure, hoping to boost both supply and demand at once. We tried to solve the problem through 1 or 2 surprise moves, but what did we actually overlook? We looked at things too statically. For example, back then, we would compare Zhuanzhuan and Xianyu, but we were comparing Zhuanzhuan and Xianyu in a static way. In reality, you're not just competing with a static version of Xianyu. You're competing not just with Xianyu, but also with Alibaba backing them. For Zhuanzhuan, I had no revenue and still had to bear a lot of extra costs. So this business model simply wasn't viable. So I think first, I didn't know how to do business, didn't understand management. Second, in terms of strategy, I made a lot of mistakes too, like being fond of reading legendary stories. When you haven't experienced those things yourself, you just don't know, and that's true for most people. I failed to thoroughly examine the entire market from a dynamic perspective. And I didn't really take the time to consider who my actual competitors were. If you don't even know who your true competitors are, then you are very likely to face a significant failure.
At what point did you come to the realization that this was a problem?
When the pain became unbearable.
What was your state like at that time?
To be honest, I was in a very painful and difficult state of mind back then. I often found myself sitting alone in our company's small meeting room, you might have actually seen it before, just watching Slam Dunk. Even on my long commute to work, I'd watch Slam Dunk too. It was truly and deeply inspiring, and it really made me feel that many of life's toughest difficulties could eventually be overcome. You just have to find the strength to keep going, no matter what happens. I had to inspire myself. Normally, I don't need to do that, but during that period, I needed to rely on some external things to recharge myself. The original song is actually sounding remarkably different from this. Quite unique.
That sounds very good and quite helpful to me.
Yeah, I feel like I've never even walked across this bridge.
Right? Do you find a place like this every week to make yourself happy, to get in touch with nature?
I really do prefer nature, and this has become more and more obvious in the past 2 years. It feels like a lot of things I can't figure out at the office, I can actually sort out when I'm outside. There was even a period when I felt that whenever I came back from out of town, if it wasn't for a business trip but for travel, as soon as you land at the airport itself tells you that it's over. You're back in a working city and everything just comes at you all at once.
If you take a step back, there are plenty of opportunities at big companies.
Once you're on this ship, you won't think about anything else. I think I'm a very resilient person. I have to get these things done.
What is it that keeps you going?
I can't understand why others don't persist. In my mind, not persisting has never been an option.
So, with all of that having been said,
what I'm curious about is, what's behind your perseverance? For us, fundraising was really difficult. We kept working hard, kept pushing, but there was never any response. In the past, Mr. Ma said he visited dozens of investors and was turned away every time. At first, I thought I was so miserable going through that period, but now we think, what's the big deal? Many people have experienced meeting 100 people and still getting nowhere, not even a follow-up. They wouldn't even bother to give you feedback. There was one person I thought I had a really good conversation with, but why wasn't he moved? So I went to him and asked, why did you...
Can you tell us what his reason was for rejecting you?
There are many reasons for rejection, but honestly, I think the reason was closely related to timing. From 2015 to 2017, there was a lot of capital in the market, many entrepreneurs, and a lot of investment. Everyone was still immersed in the abundance of new opportunities, like DD and many other companies that seized new chances during that period. But in March 2018, capital started to tighten up, and investors began to ask for revenue. Previously, both our investors and ourselves thought that as long as you had user scale, that was enough. It was pretty naive. Then they started saying we needed revenue. So we had to rethink everything. By 2019, it became having revenue isn't enough. Do you have revenue at scale? Is there a possibility you could become profitable? In my view, investment is something that's very closely tied to the rhythm of the market. When the market is good, they're looking for highlights. When the market is bad, any little thing can be a reason to reject you, because at that time, not investing is the safest choice.
How long did this situation last?
6 months to 3 quarters.
How did you get through it?
After going through all of those intense experiences, sometimes you still find yourself believing in the concept of fate. I think Chen Wei mentioned this very same idea in his memoir as well. When you have tried absolutely everything within your power, it often seems like a window of opportunity suddenly opens up for you. It is really about relentlessly giving and giving of yourself until you feel like you have done everything you possibly can, and then, quite suddenly, a group of people begins to truly appreciate you. Because of this serendipitous and unexpected opportunity, you gather all the 2 or 3 essential keys needed to break down that heavy door, and you actually manage to get the money. So it is fundamentally about having the immense courage to face death and be completely reborn. We also frequently say that the biggest change or the biggest winner in the future will definitely be someone who is willing to dedicate their entire life to this specific cause. He was the very last one to leave the scene, so I think this point is really about enduring resilience, which will gradually emerge amidst these constantly changing times. Therefore, I firmly believe this kind of inner power is boundless, and in the long run, it will definitely overcome simple resource-driven approaches. If resources were truly that useful on their own, then theoretically, banks could do absolutely anything they wanted, but the reality of the situation is certainly not like that at all. I have never once thought about going to do something else just because the path is so incredibly difficult. How should I put it? I have always focused entirely on the task itself. The deep meaning of the task brings me immense personal value, not just fame or fortune. Money and fame are essentially the same thing, right? So if I were doing this solely for the money, I could easily calculate that starting a business like this simply isn't worthwhile. Therefore, as long as the underlying meaning isn't questioned, I will continue to persevere and move forward.
You had a very smooth path, getting into Tsinghua, then working at big companies like Baidu and 58.com. But have you ever thought about when you started developing this kind of resilience under pressure?
I think I'm quite lucky, and I have a pretty good mindset. My grades in high school weren't that great. I went to a county high school under Huanggang. In our county, usually only 2 students a year get into Tsinghua or Peking University. My usual ranking in the county was around 70th place, so why did I still get into Tsinghua? It's because other people get nervous during the college entrance exam, but I didn't. So I'm not sure if this counts as strong resilience under pressure, or maybe my threshold for feeling pressure just isn't that high. I just thought, what's the big deal?
Actually, in my memory, the thing that had the biggest impact on Zhuanzhuan was probably the Dawen incident.
Internally, our definition of this matter is that, regardless of whether it was a PR incident, we focused more on reflecting on what we ourselves should do. For the entire year of 2024, we cancelled all our original growth targets and defined 2024 internally as the year of deep understanding and reason. Essentially, this means providing users with a better experience. For example, in our stores, you are allowed to return products within 7 days. Apart from Apple's official stores and a few other direct sale stores, Zhuanzhuan is currently the only one offering this service. Over the past year, we calculated internally that the increased investment in this policy amounted to 2 or 3 million RMB, but at that time there was actually another crisis, which I think was really an employee crisis. When a company is being criticized by many people externally, employees feel very anxious inside. They start to wonder whether what they are doing is right or wrong, or if there really is a problem.
So sometimes the first thing we need to address is not external, but internal.
I think during that period, we deeply reflected on our experiences and tried to build everyone's confidence. We asked a few questions. First, even before Zhuanzhuan existed, people wanted secondhand goods. Second, our initial intention in providing secondhand goods was to offer services, and that was absolutely right. So the deeper you go in providing services, the higher people's expectations become. Now, we've essentially placed all the responsibilities of buyers and sellers on our shoulders, which naturally raises expectations for both of us. It's not that everyone blames the platform, but if you choose this path, you have to bear the consequences. We also asked our employees if, given the current situation, Zhuanzhuan was truly that bad, would it have survived to this day? We also asked what changes the industry has undergone since Zhuanzhuan existed. We pioneered the 7-day return policy, and now all platforms are implementing it. Previously, there were no standards for secondhand goods, but now we're establishing standards. I think it's not just that users are benefiting, even if they aren't. The buying and selling experience has likely improved. Many people's understanding of the dirty and chaotic nature of secondhand goods has changed because of this benefit. So, from this perspective, we must recognize that we definitely have many shortcomings, but we don't need to completely negate everything. We still need to move forward.
So we need to approach a crisis with a positive mindset and attitude.
Yes, I think first we have to accept it, especially when users are complaining about you. You have to acknowledge that, okay, in the long run, the public's eyes are sharp and they will vote with their feet.
I often see a lot of slogans in the company like heaven and earth will judge. Are you and I truly in the right?
Right, like putting down roots and reaching upward. When you're working on user experience, you might invest a lot of money and spend a long time, yet still see no results. I once asked ChatGPT a question. Is there something that on the surface doesn't seem to change much, even though a lot has been put into it, but in reality, it has changed? ChatGPT answered with bamboo. It said that for the first few years, bamboo doesn't show much change above ground, but in fact, its roots are growing deeper and deeper underground. Once the roots are strong enough, the growth above ground will suddenly accelerate dramatically.
In your company, including yourself, the CFO, and many other executives are all robots. So what kind of character does this company have?
A kind of obliviousness to social cues. But actually, to some extent, there's still a sense of passion, or you could say a youthful spirit, or an unyielding attitude within the company. For example, when our movie The Master was released, we gave out movie tickets to all 5,000 employees so everyone could go watch it together. There's a bit of that hot-blooded, slightly adolescent energy, like we really are a bit passionate and a bit naive. It's as if we can't just settle into silence. We have to do something different.
I was actually quite shocked to find Zhuanzhuan had grown to 10,000 employees, especially since you've only been in business for 10 years.
I myself feel quite anxious about this as well, how we've unknowingly grown to this scale in terms of headcount. Like I mentioned earlier, we realized we needed quality inspection, so we hired a lot of people for that. Then we found out we needed door-to-door service, so we hired a lot of people for that too.
I know you have over 800 stores, but deep down, you don't actually want the company to expand this much.
It was bound to happen. It is something that grew bit by bit out of business needs. But I did not anticipate at the very start that it might eventually exceed my current management capabilities.
The core issue is how to make an organization of 10,000 people more efficient, agile, and closely connected.
If everyone were headquarters staff, then the focus would probably be on streamlining the organizational structure, constantly updating and iterating, reducing layers of management, and making the organization more efficient. But now, it seems like that's not the only issue. There was one time when this became especially obvious, during an executive live stream where some strategic topics were discussed, and it turned out that the frontline employees simply didn't care.
What do they care about?
They care about what specific actions you're going to take, not about these long-term, far-off things. They want to know, if I do something, what reward will I get? What is allowed or not allowed by the company? They need clarity. So I changed my approach and said, actually, by working hard and achieving better results, making life better for yourself and your family is something to be proud of, right? It's a bit like changing your destiny with your own hands. But after saying this too many times, the headquarters staff became dissatisfied, complaining that I kept talking about these things and not enough about strategy. It's hard to please everyone.
Zhuanzhuan's employee profile is actually very similar to that of many Chinese companies like Haidilao, Meituan, SF Express, and various courier companies, as well as Lianjia. Their business relies on grassroots workers, and their core value is that you can change your destiny with your own hands. This core value can really unite the employees. So does Zhuanzhuan have such a core value that can unify all employees and align their actions?
Our frontline employees earn commissions from transactions, not from price differences. But this actually reflects our effort to balance user interests. If I were making money from price differences, I would keep pushing your price down. We don't want to challenge human nature, or rather, we want to guide human nature toward goodness. We believe that the most important thing is the system. We need a system that inspires more goodwill in people and then motivates more people to work together to deliver value to users. Many of our adjustments come from internal reviews where we try to figure out how to find such a good system.
You might encounter situations where there are things you don't like, but you have to do them. How do you overcome that?
Just force yourself to overcome it. Even though a lot of people out there say, be yourself, have your own style, that's only when you're in a strong position. Then, of course, others will change for you. But in reality, most of the time, you're not in a strong position. If you still insist on being yourself, you might not get the result you want. If you want that result, you might have to force yourself to change. For example, I'm actually not good at socializing with people in private, but sometimes you just have to do it.
But do you think you're able to empathize with all the employees in the company?
I am able to empathize, but sometimes I don't dare to say we can empathize 100% because you can never truly know another person's hardships, right? Actually, here in our company, we have a culture called staying close to the front line. Sometimes the way I solve problems is that if something is particularly difficult to figure out, I'll just go to the front line. From that experience, I can always feel the truth in Inamori Kazuo's words. There are gods on the front line. We've also started to recognize another kind of responsibility, which I think is about job opportunities. If Zhuanzhuan can provide employment for our staff and the people around us, about 100,000 people, so that they can earn an income, and this income can support their families and help them live a little better, I think that's a wonderful thing.
There's a popular saying now that every industry is worth being done by AI, so can we also say that every industry is worth being covered by the second-hand market?
This is a big topic. I think many categories can be restructured by the second-hand market because second-hand, in essence, represents a change in the economic paradigm. The term for second-hand is the circular economy. In theory, the circular economy is based on the 3R principles. The first R is reduce, which means to reduce and simplify usage. The second is reuse, to use things again. The third is recycle, which is resource recovery. So we believe that many of humanity's past ideas can actually be restructured through the concept of the circular economy.
I remember you went to study glaciers last year. What was your mindset or intention when you went to see them?
That's a long story, haha. Actually, we've never really figured out what the market position of secondhand is. We noticed that we're not included in the rankings of internet companies, nor are we listed among e-commerce companies, and so on. The idea is to figure out what kind of brand we should belong to or what kind of positioning we should pursue. We didn't know about the circular economy before, but from a statistical perspective, if I reuse something instead of remanufacturing it, it's a way to test the market. In Europe and America, everyone accepts this. The reason why Europe has the most second-hand goods is because everyone accepts the concept of environmental protection. So we are gradually realizing that this is actually the field we are in, the field of the circular economy. So let's talk about what the second-hand market can really contribute to the environment. In fact, the biggest environmental problem in the world today is climate change, not even biodiversity or marine life protection. 31% of carbon emissions from climate change are caused by production and manufacturing. So theoretically, reusing and reducing unnecessary production is very important for this goal. From July 2024 to today, every month has been the hottest in the world. We realized that climate change is not just about saving the Earth, but about saving the world. So last year, when we went to the Glacier, we and our team realized that everyone should know that the climate is really changing. Our mission has two parts. The first is for users, to let people enjoy the joy of secondhand trading. The second is to make the world more sustainable through circulation. So this is what we feel is meaningful about the secondhand industry.
Do you feel happy living?
Like this. It's okay, not too hard. If a person is not just dealing with problems, but making the most rational choices, actually, that's like being in a state of functioning as a robot. But if you're pursuing meaning, wisdom, and learning, then you're actually in a state of being human.
All right, that's enough. Let's head back.
Okay, thank you. Good job, let's go.
Go back to your meeting. You've been working all day. Thank you.